Tom?
Hello.
Hi, Tom. I'm on the line, but I'm going to be muted.
Okay. How are you, Jen?
I'm doing okay. How are
Yep.
you?
I'm pretty darn good.
Okay, good.
How's my picture, my photo look here?
Your photo looks great and you have good lighting.
Yeah. You know, I decided to open the window in front of me. So
That's perfect. Yeah, because that looks great. Yeah, you look great.
yep. Thank you.
Anyway, I'll be here on mute listening in.
Yep. Good.
Okay.
Good.
Hi, Tom. Just wanted to say hello and thank you.
Hi. Is your first name pronounced Ankur?
Yeah, I've learned a lot from you in the data quality space. So just wanted to extend my gratitude.
Well,
and
thank you very much.
To the content today. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Good.
Just grab.
Where are you? Where in the world are you today?
Yes, I'm in San Jose, in California, on the West Coast. Yeah.
Is it a beautiful day there?
It's beautiful. Yeah, can't complain about the weather and nature here. Thank you.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Tom. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you, Jay?
I am doing good. Hey, Ankur. Nice to see you. I think there's a few other people joining. Jennifer is on.
Hi, all. Yes, I'm on and listening in.
Thanks for joining, Jennifer.
Thanks for having us.
You are welcome. Let me see if I can open the screen. We'll just give folks about 30 more seconds, Tom, and then we'll get started.
At your convenience.
I am trying to bring up the... Okay. There you go. Can you see my screen, Tom?
I can. Yeah. There's one good-looking guy on that screen.
And that's you.
Yeah, hardly.
All right, we are a minute past. Let's give maybe 30 more seconds and we get started. All right, in the interest of time, let's get started, Tom, and then we can hopefully let others join as they come in. So good afternoon, everyone. This is Zaidi from AlyData. I am here with Tom Redman, and this is the third webinar in our series on data management, data quality, and analytics. And the topic for today is Tales of Real-Life Data Quality Provocateurs. This is going to be a very interesting and interactive session. And we wanted to make sure that we are covering some of the foundational aspects of key, what data quality challenges enterprises have, and then dive into how associates on the ground can make a difference in addressing that. So before I get started, let me just go over the agenda and some housekeeping items. So as you may notice, we are recording this session. So just wanted to put it out there, from a legal perspective. And then we also want to let you know that we will be addressing audience questions at the end of the session after Tom and I are done talking and discussing data quality. So please enter
hopefully sooner rather than later.
Yes. So please post your questions in the chat window, and we will pick them up from there, and we'll address them. And finally, please reach out to us offline if we are not able to get to your questions right away, or reach us through LinkedIn. We'll be happy to discuss any challenges your organization is having, and help you overcome those. So without further ado, I wanted to thank our special guest today, Tom Redman. Dr. Redman is also called the Data Doc. He's the president of Data Quality Solutions, and his firm helps startups and multinationals, senior executives, chief data officers, and leaders buried deep in their organizations chart their course to data-driven futures with special emphasis on quality and analytics. Tom's most important article is Data's Credibility Problem, that was published in the Harvard Business Review in December 2013. He has a Ph.D. in statistics and 2 patents to his name. So as you can imagine, highly accomplished expert in the field of data quality. So Tom, welcome to our webinar.
Yeah, thank you, Jay, for inviting me. I'm looking forward to our discussion.
Thanks. And with that, let me spend 30 seconds on the agenda, and then we'll dive right in. So in the first 25 or 30 minutes, what I would like to do is have a conversation with Tom, some real examples of data quality organization face. Talk about this concept of the data quality position on the ground makes a successful, and then we will dive into the questions. Tom, the first question I have for you is, what are some real life examples of data quality challenges that organizations you work with have faced? And then how do you categorize those, and how do you develop a strategy for them?
Right. That's a really interesting question, Jay. I think that my first reaction is I don't remember any person or organization approaching me saying we have a data quality problem per se. They've approached me with a business problem, and it's one that comes to mind. A head of a department, or it's a fairly large department inside an oil and gas company. The problem he had is, he said, every staff meeting, all anybody does is complain about data quality, right? And he said, but we have some metrics on it. And the metrics show that we're in the high 90s, right? And the metrics don't square with what people are telling me, right? And it doesn't square with what we're seeing on in our metrics. And so what's the resolution to this? Now, by the way, his business problem wasn't data quality per se. It is what is going on.
Yeah.
Right? And a lot of times, I mean, I'm just reviewing in my mind. I mean, so somebody came to me with a problem one time that was of the form, we purchased 5 copies of this different from different vendors, and we try to pull them together and create a golden copy. It seems like we're wasting a lot of money, right? Now they didn't know whether the data was good or bad, right? It was just this business of expense. A third one that's coming to mind. One time somebody asked me, it was really kind of interesting because they asked me to do a sample size calculation for them, and the reason they wanted the sample size calculation was they had to request budget in order to go in and study something, and so so my question back was, well, how does the process work, right? And I kind of got one of these, oh gee, I don't know, and so I sort of opined, well, maybe before we do a sample size calculation, we had to figure out how the process works, and we talked about what that would work, and in the end, after an hour, the person came back and said, okay, well, you still haven't answered my sample size question, and so I said it was a him, so I said to him, well, if I told you that I want you to do 50 next week without getting any more budget, could you do that? And he thought about it for a minute, and he said, no, I couldn't. I said, okay, then how about 25? And he said, okay, well, I can do 25. And so he came back 2 weeks later. It wasn't a week, it was 2 weeks, right? And he hadn't done 25, he'd only done 19. But every single one of them had something broken in them, something unexpected, some data quality problem, right? And so the point was, what started out as how do I get budget morphed into a data quality problem. And I think this is really, really important. Most people do not want to do data quality for its own sake, and indeed, I'm sure you don't recommend it. I don't recommend it.
Nope.
Right. Work on data quality to solve business problems.
Yeah.
A business problem that a lot of companies are running into now is they're trying to make artificial intelligence work or machine learning. They're doing some sort of data science at the tail end of a process, and they simply can't trust the data. But there too, I mean, the problem isn't data quality per se. It's that we can't make our models work. People don't trust our models. What are we gonna do about our models? And so the next question you asked was, well, how do I categorize them? And I guess I sort of don't, in the sense that you sort of start with a business problem, right? Usually it's very high level and ill-defined, and you sort of pull on a thread, and so the thread doesn't always lead to data quality, but there's a lot of bad data out there, so a lot of times it does. And then the big question then is, well, what are you going to do about it? And so I find that the way most organizations attack data quality is they say, we got a bunch of bad data, we need to clean it up.
Yeah.
Okay. And so the big distinction is cleanup adequate, right? If the data were perfectly clean today, would you have the same problem in 6 months? And a lot of times when you just sort of play the movie forward, the answer is, yep, we're creating more bad data every day. And so then the question really becomes, how are we going to quit creating more bad data?
Or figuring out the root cause and fixing it. Right?
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. I mean, what are the root causes? Now, by the way, the point of this thing is there's sometimes 2 things you need to do. Sometimes you actually need to clean up the bad data, and sometimes you need to get to the root cause, and occasionally you have to do both.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you think about,
and you want to do it proactively so that you're not having to deal with that on the back end, or the consumers don't have to deal with it on a regular basis.
yeah, I mean, think about some organization that's building a model, and they may have 10 years of history, and so they have that history to train the model. Well, they have to clean that up.
Yeah.
Right. They have to clean that up. But then so they, suppose they're lucky enough to actually come up with some insights, an algorithm that they can build in, and now they're going to turn it loose. Well, the last thing they want to be doing is cleaning up data every day. Right. The sort of productivity gain that you would hope with the new algorithm just goes away. And
Got it.
and so that's one of the few cases where you really have to do both.
Yeah. So while we're on that topic, Tom, let's can you share your thoughts on this concept? Because I look at data quality as a supply chain problem, right?
Right.
Because we operate in silos, and those data quality issues get created in silos. But to solve the data quality issues holistically, we have to look at it from a supply chain perspective. So can you shed some light on sort of your experiences in trying to solve quality at the enterprise level, kind of using that data supply chain concept, if you may?
Well, so first of all, it's a really, really good question. And it's a really, really important question. And one of the things that I learned, Jay, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago, was you didn't have to go do esoteric things to learn about data quality problems in organizations. All you had to do was read the newspaper, right? Because data quality problems appear with stunning regularity in whatever your favorite magazine or newspaper is. And one of my favorite newspapers is actually The Economist. I suppose most people call that a magazine, but they call themselves a newspaper.
Yeah.
And so I thought you might ask me about this, so I tore out this little article here. Right.
Yeah.
This article is called "The Toll of COVID-19." It contains multitudes. America struggles to comprehend the scale of its loss. In a sense, 500,000, 500,000 is just a very big number. It is not even accurate, given that perhaps 100,000 American deaths from COVID-19 were never counted. Okay. And by the way, I mean, I've been thinking about this, and in my mind, I don't trust the COVID deaths within 50% kind of thing. But here it is in print in the Economist, all right? And here we are dealing with a national and an international crisis, and the fundamental statistics, how many people are dead, how many people have the disease, where are they, blah, 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 blah. We do not have those numbers. And if you think about, well, how would you get those numbers? Well, it starts that somebody is dying, and maybe they're dying in a hospital, or maybe they're dying in their home, right? But somebody somewhere is making an evaluation of what caused their death.
Right.
And then that is either getting aggregated at a hospital level, or at a county level, and at a state level, and on and on. And of course, in some states, if somebody dies in prison, that doesn't get counted against the state totals. And everybody's read the problems with counting deaths in nursing homes that has New York Governor Cuomo. There's a New York Governor Cuomo's in. This is his second biggest problem right now, kind of thing. But so this is the supply chain. This is the supply chain that we need to accurately to predict what's going to happen, to chart a course, all things that we consider good in the fight against COVID. And the numbers, according to The Economist, can't be trusted within 20%. And it's exactly a supply chain issue. So hundreds of people, thousands of people maybe, are part of that supply chain. But where is the coordination? Okay, where is the coordination? And I will bet you a cookie that nobody came into work today and said, you know what, I'm going to screw up counting a COVID death because I know it's going to screw up the national statistics,
Yeah.
right? But they don't know what is expected of them. Okay.
Got it. Got it.
Now, of course, by the way, most companies you're not dealing with, we're not dealing with problems at that level, but marketing is trying to generate leads and they're passing them on to sales. And so marketing is part of sales supply chain. And then sales is trying to create, change leads into customers. And then they're trying to generate things like products sold that are going to operations. And all of that stuff then is going to finance. And maybe, a couple months later, it's winding its way into some data science activity, right?
Yeah.
And nobody is coming in and saying, I'm going to screw up the data today because I know that 3 departments and 4 months down the road, it's going to foul somebody up, right? So the data is actually moving, right? It's not actually moving. It's being copied and then
transformed potentially.
And transformed. That's exactly right. But look, I mean, you simply cannot recover if you don't get the prospect's name right, and you are trying to deal with that down
On the back end.
Right, when some poor risk manager is trying to, decide how much credit we're going to offer this person. It is just so much work.
Yeah.
And so this business of managing the supply chain, right? So and managing it, either starting with the uses of the data and working back to the points of creation, or working from the points of creation and working forward to the customer. I mean, it is a big deal, and it is a big deal that requires people in it. This is not a tech issue.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you've seen some of my stuff where I talk about customers and creators.
Yeah.
And everybody is in those roles every day. And if you're a customer, well, and you're not getting what you need and you haven't said anything, then shame on you. And if you're a creator and you're not reaching out and trying to figure out who to use your stuff and what they need and whether your stuff's any good, then shame on you, kind of thing.
Yeah. And I think you raise a very good point, Tom, because when you look at it from a data quality perspective, right, you have a producer of data and you have a consumer of data, as you mentioned, right, a customer of data. The question then becomes, does the producer have a sort of some accountability for doing something to make sure that they're, certifying the data, for example, and then providing not just the data set, but also the sort of, what they did with it, right? The metrics around the certification process, so that the consumer can feel comfortable that, and can trust the data when they're using it. Otherwise, in a real life scenario, what ends up happening is that the consumer of the data doesn't trust it. So they're doing a whole bunch of, redundant activity in validating and checking the integrity and fixing the data.
Yeah, I mean, let me build on that. And I don't want to, pick on a nit, but data is not consumed with use. So consumer is not a correct term, right? The analogy doesn't extend that far. We think of that because we use a lot of product models in thinking about quality, and we think of consumers of ourselves as consumers of products. But look, the fact of the matter is the two roles I just described: a customer and a creator. Well, what has to happen for that to work? First of all, the customer has to be clear what they want. And you've seen the same statistics I have. 90% of the data is never used by anyone for anything. No sense worrying about that stuff, right? So we have to focus on the most important data in the eyes of customers, okay? And so customers have to figure out what they want, and that's not always easy. And then they have to figure out where that stuff is coming from, and they have to sit down with the creator and say, here's what I need. then either the creator on their own or together, they have to make a measurement against those needs. Kind of thing. I mean, you just can't improve unless you get a baseline. Now, generally speaking, I like the creator to make the measurement, but there's exceptions to that. And Jay, the thing we're finding over and over again is when you start looking at that, the data quality measurements are coming in the 50 and 60%, right? So it's not like we're not talking about something that's at 96%. We want to drive it up to 99. We're talking about things that are at 50%, and we need to get them to 90%.
Right.
And so you got to make those measurements, and then something you said earlier, you got to figure out the root causes, and make them go away. And the really good news is so many of the root causes are pretty darn easy once you turn the lens on them.
Right. So something I would like you to expand on, Tom, is you said that the customer needs to define the requirements, right, of what they want. Can you be a little bit more specific? Because there's this whole concept of data quality dimensions, and there's this whole concept of and a lot of times the consumer or the customer of the data may not know how best to articulate those requirements. So what would your recommendation be to them?
Well, so look, I first of all, I mean, people have to learn how to do the work, and so learning how to do the work of how to be a good customer. So like we have a little workshop that we take people through, the essence of which is to articulate, well, what are you trying to do, right? And so, okay, well, I grant mortgages. Well, what data do you need to grant mortgages? Okay. I make evaluations of whether we ought to renew software license. What data do you need to do that? And so the process, when you break it down that way, is what work do you do? What data do you need to do that work? I don't expect customers to be able to opine then that, well, I need the data to be 98% complete or accurate or anything like that. It's kind of a ridiculous question. If you ask anybody, well, how accurate their data needs to be, the answer is always 100% kind of thing. Okay. Right. And so the dimensions of data quality are, I've not found them useful on the customer side. Okay. If they're sometimes helpful for data creators is they try to create some efficient measurement systems. But I find most of the time it's kind of, okay, well, here's what we need. The customers need. What fraction of the time did we give it to them? The totality of what they wanted, right? So I mean, and this is an important point. If somebody needs 20 attributes to complete their work, and 19 of them are okay, and one of them is bad, there's a temptation to measure data quality is 19 out of 20. But the real answer is it's 0, because that data record was not fit for use. The customer had to do something with that data record to make it so they could do their work.
Got it.
Okay. Yeah. And when we look at it that way, that sort of simple, what does data quality mean for the work? The dimensions are less useful.
But maybe from a measurement standpoint, you could use those, right, to kind of measure, because.
Yeah, of course you can. By the way, there's things that you can't measure, like there's relevancy. So, I'm a data scientist, you have a database. What I really want to know is whether your data is relevant for the problem I'm trying to solve.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we don't have a relevo meter, right? Yeah. Kind of thing. I mean, it is or it's not. So there's things like that, like relevance is a really important dimension of data quality that does not lend itself to measurement, but we have to deal with it, and we have to deal with it straight away. Lots and lots of times.
Yeah. So let me pause for a second and make sure I let the audience know if you have questions for Tom, please post them in the chat window so that we can address them. Because I'm sure, you know, data quality is a complex topic, and there's lots and lots of challenges that companies have. So we wanted to pose some of those to Tom and get his expertise and get his opinion on that. So just wanted to put it out there. So the
By
next,
the way, I just want to jump in, Jay. I mean, because you
Yes.
made an important comment, which is that data quality is complex. Okay. And frankly, I think that people make it way more complex than it needs to be. Okay. You have these things called customers, and they need stuff. And you have these things called creators, and they're producing the stuff that people need. And you got to get them together. And then, you know, there's a bunch of little machinery around that. But once people say, I'm a customer and take up that role, and I'm a creator and take up that role, quality improves quickly. Okay. And too much quality is done in the center, right? You know, in some database or processing engine and so forth, and not enough with people on the edges. If that
right. No, good point, Tom. The reason I said data quality is complex, because in my experience, right, everybody, when we go into a client, everybody has their own view of or definition of what data quality means, right?
Right.
And then that is where the complexity starts coming in, and people have a tough time defining what it is. And then there's all the water cooler conversation happening, you know, until to your earlier point, when you start drilling down into it, you realize there's a lot of noise, but then there's a few facts around data quality that, you know, you can sort of get your arms around.
Right.
So in any case, so now that we're on this, you know, we've kind of discussed what the data quality challenges are, what you know, what the data supply chain is in the context of quality, and then we've sort of discussed certain aspects of data quality from a consumer or customer and a creator standpoint. Why don't we talk about, you know, who are these people? You mentioned the P word. Who are these people that are going to make this happen, right, on the ground, the provocateurs, as you call them? Let's dive into that a little bit so that you can elaborate and tell us, you know, who is this person, or who are these people, and then what makes a good provocateur, and then what do they need to do to make real, you know, sort of real strides on the ground and move the ball forward?
Yeah. Look, this is, you've asked a lot of really good questions, and this one's both really good and really, really important. So if you look at the way most organizations are managing data quality, whatever job you do, you come in the morning, and there's a bunch of data there for you to use your job, to do your job, and some of it's good and some of it's bad, and you spend a couple of hours every day dealing with that stuff, right? I mean, and that is the organizational momentum, right? In a lot of companies, it's kind of like, you know, well, you know, it's your job, own it, get it done, kind of thing, right? And that is a mentality. It is a mentality that is baked bad data quality practice in. And what a provocateur is somebody who looks at that and they sees just how plainly stupid it is to come in and expect, like in a big company, literally thousands of people at all levels, to spend a fraction of their day simply dealing with data they can't trust. Okay. And so a provocateur is the person who says, okay, we're not doing very well on this business problem or that business problem. We need to change the way we're attacking data quality, and puts in place, in one way or another, those roles we talked about as customers and creators within their span of control or their span of influence. And the most important thing is they've made some sustained improvements. So if data quality when we started was at 50%, then 6 months later it's at 90%. And that happened because 3 root causes got eliminated, kind of thing. So the provocateur, what they have done is they have challenged the organization's implicit way of dealing with data quality, and they have changed it, and they've not changed it on view graphs. They've changed it in actual practice in one segment of an organization.
So
Okay.
let me stop you right there. So who is this person? Are they from the business? Are they from technology? Are they from data? What level do they have to be? Sort of a leader, with a lot of clout, or can they be somebody on the ground, who's is able, who understands the on the ground reality, but does not have the influence to make some major changes?
Well, so look, I mean, again, I made the comment they're making changes within their span of influence. One of my, is it okay if I name names?
Sure.
Okay. So Rob Gowdy was a provocateur. He I guess we'd call him a knowledge worker. He was a scientist, an environmentalist employed by the EPA in Victoria, the state of Victoria in Australia. Okay. A lot of provocateurs have been at that level, right? Sort of knowledge workers. Others have been sort of low to middle managers, but they saw that the way something was being done didn't make sense. A lot of times they were new to a job. They may have just taken this role, and people explained how they were doing the work, and they kind of scratched their head and said why are they doing that way? So I've had the pleasure of meeting, working with many people at this level. So Bob Pauke, when he was at AT&T, was an exemplary provocateur. To more a little bit of a middle level, Nikki Chang at Chevron, Luanga Yankee at Air Energy, Carl Fleischman also at Shell. Kind of things, and not senior managers, right? Now, one of my favorite provocateurs was also the head of a business unit. Her name is Liz Kirscher, and Liz ran the data business at Morningstar. So I don't know, at the time maybe Morningstar was 1,500 people, and 1,000 of them reported to her, and she decided that the quality of data that they provided had to go up, kind of thing. It was a competitive thing for her.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And by the way, this is the most exciting part about it. Okay. The most exciting part about it for me is that everybody can be a provocateur. Everybody at any level can be a provocateur. Now, it can be kind of scary, okay, because you have to get out and you have to do things differently, and you kind of have to challenge the status quo, and it can be scary to do that, but it's also, a provocateur doesn't have to change the entire company. Their responsibility is just within their span of influence, okay? And I use the word influence, not control, because people have more influence than they want.
Control. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, and this is really important. So other than Liz Kirscher, okay, and a couple of other senior people, most data quality programs start bottom up, and they start when a provocateur gets traction, and then it almost writes a script that the organization can no longer deny that this will work in the XYZ corporation.
Got it. And I think if you show value from the work that you do on the ground within your span of influence, that really gives you credibility, and then you can start using that as a way to drive your points home.
It's really important. I mean, look, it's all theoretical until you fix something, and the company's made some money, or whatever they value, right? It's not always about money. Sometimes it's about better risk management or whatever it is.
Right. Cool. Okay, so we have quite a few very, very interesting questions from the audience. So why don't we jump into that, if you don't mind, Tom?
Please do. Yes.
All right. So the first one I have is from John. Can Tom comment on the criticality and risk associated with individual data items in the totality of a data set? I think you touched upon it earlier, but it would be good if you can elaborate a little bit more.
So if this really means that, like a particular attribute, so I mean, just take a piece of work, and sometimes, Jay, I use a fictitious company called Sweaters R Us. I know absolutely nothing about sweaters, but therefore this is a great example to just sort of to talk about things in the data quality space. Well, the first thing that has to happen in Sweaters R Us is you have to take an order for a sweater and you have to deliver it.
Yeah.
Okay. And to do that appropriately, you have to do things like you have to get the customer's name correct, you have to get their address, you have to get the credit card, you have to get the style of sweater they want and the size. And so you have to do all of those things to successfully deliver the sweater to this customer. And if you get any one of those things wrong, so you got 19 things right, but we delivered you the wrong size sweater, you get no credit, right? And so the look, there's a lot of data items that don't matter, but if you're trying to complete a unit of work and you want to complete that unit of work without rework the first time, then all those data items must be correct. And it's a really, really important point in terms of thinking of, well, in terms of what people say, right? People don't say I need data quality at 95% so that I'm only getting the sweater returned because the size was wrong, right? They need all the stuff correct so that unit of work will complete, and that escalates. So like it's simplest at delivering sweaters. It's more complicated when we talk about, well, how many how many more sweaters do we need to order from the factory? Where are we going to stock them? Where are we going to put our next store? Kind of thing. I mean, the problems get increasingly complex. But the basic operational ones, all the needed attributes have to be correct.
Correct. Okay. No, good point. All right. The next one I have, which is also a very interesting one, is how do you get organizations to take data quality seriously or take a data first perspective? Apps, tech, skills get a lot of focus relative to data. They're easier to sell than the hard slog to fix the data. How can we shift the focus?
Could you ask the question again?
So the question is, how do you get organizations to take data quality seriously or take a data first perspective? Apps, applications, technology, skills get a lot of focus relative to data because they're easier to sell, but then it's a hard slog to fix the data. Yeah. So how do we shift the focus at the senior levels and then, at the middle management and down?
Well, so look, I think this is one of these things for every 100 times I try, maybe I succeed 10 or 11 or something like that. But again, to me, the key is not that it's the data, it's the business problem. Okay. And the sell is not that you need better data for data's sake. You need better data so that you can deliver the sweaters. You need better data so that you can stock the inventory correctly. You need better data so you can make better decisions. You need better data so that you can make the capital investment at the right time so that you have the right capacity to produce the sweaters. Okay.
So what you're saying, sorry to
sale.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, please. I've never made a data first sale. Okay. And I mean, and it's very high level and people kind of agree on it. But the sale is your business is going to work better with better data.
Got it. And maybe taking specific examples and highlighting that, right? Within the context of your specific business area or department.
Yeah, so that's really important. So far, nobody's cared about my Sweaters R Us example, right? They care about things in their company. Okay. Yeah. Right. I mean, by the way, they're kind of, I use that example and say, well, what are the things in your company? And we have a discussion about it. But it is all very personal, right? I mean, this is the thing. Data quality is local. If the enterprise is made up of 10,000 people, then there are 10,000 data quality problems. You and I may share one, okay? We may have common ones, but it is made up of lots and lots of little ones, And the good news, again, by the way, is a lot of those ones, a lot of those can be solved pretty darn easily.
So again, to your point, I think what you're saying is start with the business value and business outcomes that you're trying to generate, right? Focus on that end product, and then sort of work your way back to the data, and fixing that data and showing that, okay, by fixing these data quality problems, for example, you could achieve that outcome, whether it's better decisions or, failing processes or, better reporting, et cetera.
Yeah, whatever it is. I mean, I started with one example where somebody's business problem was people are complaining all the time at staff meetings about data quality, but our metrics show we're okay. I mean, how do I resolve that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
The business problem wasn't how are we going to make more money? It was, why are people complaining?
And I think it also helps, Tom, in my experience, right? Finding a couple of, I guess, not sponsors, but folks that are influential on the business side, typically, that have certain challenges, and if you can go in there and help them solve those challenges, whether it's reconciling data because there's inconsistency in data and they're having a tough time trying to reconcile it and get the reports out, or if there are issues on a regular basis from data that they're trying to use to do various things. I think if you can tackle one or two of those and show them some value, it really helps to gain some credibility and get them to sort of champion your cause, if you may.
Look, you're not going anywhere until you do that. And again, it underscores why the provocateurs are so important, because they get that work done inside the organization, right? They're the ones who will first approach it.
Got it. Okay. No, great answer, Tom. So next question that came in is around tooling. And just for the audience, we are going to do a second webinar with Tom, same time next week, a week from now, next Tuesday, where we're going to actually talk about the implementation aspects of data quality. We're going to get into the tooling. We're going to get into a lot of the nuts and bolts of what it takes to actually stand up data quality and make it work. So please, I'm going to send out the notice on that on LinkedIn. So please register for that and encourage others to register. I just wanted to put a plug in there that we are going to talk about the how do you do it side next week, same time. Today, we were talking more about the people aspect of it, some of the soft skills needed, who the data provocateurs are, et cetera. So with that, a question that came in, Tom, what is your observation between traditional and machine learning data quality tools? Do you see a shift towards machine learning data quality and real-time data quality as data grows exponentially? This is probably something we want to cover next week, but if you want to touch upon it, it's fine right now.
So look, Art, this is a really important question. Let me just make a comment. If you don't get the roles and responsibilities right, then the tools aren't going to help you. Okay. Now that said, if you do have the roles and responsibilities right, then there's a lot of sort of machinery and quality management that you have to do. Like you need to make measurements, and you need control charts and stuff like that. And a lot of making measurements is identifying where the errors are, right? It kind of starts with that. And so traditionally, by the way, the eyeball is really good at that. The problem is it doesn't scale. But traditionally, what the tools have done is they've written business rules, and they take a lot of time, and it's really, really hard. And but then the worst thing about them is not the business rules. It's so a bunch of problems fall out, and then they get scheduled, off to a work list that somebody's supposed to follow up on, and nobody ever follows up on it, kind of thing. Yeah. Now, so the machine learning is much better at identifying problems, and you don't have to go through the formal processes of building rules. The bad news is it doesn't help you with the correction, and so it kind of is better at the easy step kind of thing. And so I want to be very encouraging to those, you know, to those developments. But again, it too many people think the data quality is about the tool and not about the management approach and getting the right roles and responsibilities in place.
Very, very good point, Tom. So if I were to summarize what you said that the tools are important, right? Because they will allow you to automate the discovery process, if you may, for data anomalies and data quality issues, but they're not going to solve those problems for you. So that's where the human sort of domain knowledge, the knowledge of your data ecosystem, your business processes, et cetera, come into play. Right?
Yeah, I mean, look, let's start with it. The first thing you have to do is you have to understand who the customer is and what the customer wants. And I haven't seen any machine learning tools that are doing that,
Yep.
kind of thing. But I also want to just make a slight correction. Step one is get the management right. Step two is the tools, right? And too many want to get to buy the tool first and then figure out the roles, and that never works.
So can you elaborate on the roles part, Tom? In terms of, are you talking roles in terms of the data customer and the provider, or are you talking sort of larger than that in terms of sort of the overarching?
Yeah. So look, that's a really good question. So the data customer and the data creator are fundamental. Now, and the provocateur gets that started somewhere. Well, now how are you going to get that to go at scale? And so to get that go at scale, you do need a data quality staff, right? And sometimes I think about it this way: is the data quality staff is there to help people understand their roles as customers and creators and connect them. Okay, and it's sort of, and there's a lot of, then once you get that going, they can do the machinery. So, we don't need everybody buying their own data quality tool, right? So they buy that once. We don't need everybody getting their own training. Get that once and figure it out. And so there's staff work, and I call it the bureaucracy, but that's a little unfair. I mean, it's just the machinery of doing the work, and you can really do that way more efficiently in a staffy kind of thing. Okay.
So the staff is actually defining, let's say, repeatable processes for it, after the issues are identified, right? So triaging it, figuring out what the root cause is, going and working with the various stakeholders to get those root causes addressed, for example, and then coming back and reporting on it and doing metrics, etc. So all of that.
Yeah, I mean, look, we talked about the customer and creator, and we talked about the provocateur getting things started, and we talked about the staff, and then the other missing role is the leader, and things like budgets have to happen, and a little bit of urgency to get people to take on business problems and so forth, right? So these are the components you need.
Yep. Okay, so I have a couple more questions, very interesting ones. There's another one on the tooling, which I think we'll catch up next week, because we've kind of spent a little bit of time on that today. Another interesting one that Ankur provided is, are the roles of the data producers and data consumers interchangeable in the data supply chain, or are there fixed notions of who is a producer and who is a consumer?
Well, so that's a really good question. And it's kind of like you in your job may wear two different hats. So you let's suppose you're in sales, right? Then you are a customer of stuff coming in from marketing, leads coming in for marketing. And you are a creator of actual sales that then are getting sent over to the operations department. Most people are both data creators and data customers, in every day kind of thing. But the roles are distinct, and in some respects, I mean, if you sort of think about data flowing across this way, and you're here, well, you're a receiver on one side, and you're a transmitter or producer on
the other.
Yes.
Yep. Okay, great. Another interesting one from John. Can Tom comment on the idea of big data, which is collect it all and we'll figure out how to use it later, discover the value, etc. But just go grab it all now.
So I think there was a great book written, and it was called "If You Build It, They Will Come," kind of thing. And if you watch that movie, you kind of realize that was about the only time it happened. People in tech have been consumed by that logic forever, and it started out with data warehouses. I remember being in meetings, when I was still a pup, and said, "Well, should we put this in? Well, does anybody use it? No, but somebody might someday. So put it in," and that sort of has just gone up and up and up, and now it's kind of like this idea of a data lake, right? Just throw it in and we'll sort it out later. And the fact of the matter is, it almost never works. Now, I don't want to say it never works, but because I think that Amazon actually has a culture where people will go back and use them. But in almost every other company, you are far better off figuring out what people need and investing in getting that right than putting a lot of junk into a lake or a warehouse or whatever it is and thinking people are going to use it. Okay. And I don't know. I've been caught saying that most data lakes are data cesspools, and nobody. Yeah. By the way, everybody does what you just did, which is they grin a little bit, acknowledging the essential truth of that. Okay. Now, but the full answer is look. Once you get in the habit of using some data, what do you want? Well, you want more, so you can do more and do more and do more, and so we can set in motion a virtuous cycle by getting the stuff people really need, and so they're not, they can trust it, and then that motivates them to ask for more. Okay. So I am very except in special. I don't, not this is not one of these blanket things, but except in special circumstances, the collect it all, save it almost never works.
Got it. So there's a follow-on question from John. So has this shifted and impacted technology, right? This whole sort of collect everything and kind of let it sit there and we'll figure things out later.
As it affected, look, I haven't noticed any change in the technologist approach to that since I've been doing this. Since obviously the capabilities are greater, and now that you can store stuff really cheaply in the cloud, it's sort of gotten worse. But I think it is very much hurting the reputation of tech departments, and because tech departments are emphasizing, having all this stuff and how big a challenge it is, but business departments are saying, yeah, but I sell sweaters, kind of thing, and we need to get this stuff right, and so I've seen it in some cases and heard about it in others, right? The thrust for more is causing a further disconnect between tech and the business, and tech people are smart to get in front of it and stop it.
Yeah. And I think that's it's very interesting that you bring this up, right? Because we are sort of inundated with data. Most organizations are inundated with data, but what they're trying to do is figure out, okay, how much of this data is useful, or I need access to the useful data, and then I need to do something with that. I need to either derive insights from that, or I need to be able to use that data to do better reporting, or kind of innovate, etc. Right? So the key is not just having a lot of data, but figuring out what from that sort of the as you mentioned, the data lake or the data warehouse or the data swamp. I need to extract the valuable data that I need, that is critical for me to run my business, and then do something with that.
Yeah, I think it was Alexander the Great who first said, I'm surrounded by data. Can't anybody give me the information I really need?" Kind of thing. So this is not a new problem.
Right. Okay, so we have about 4 minutes left. So Tom, we've covered a lot of ground today, and I really appreciate your sharing, you sharing your thoughts and sort of your wisdom. So in closing, what are some of the things that you would advise or you would like to share with the members of the audience and those that are going to be listening to this later on with respect to sort of the quality, how to do it right, what to do, what not to do, etc. So we have a couple of minutes. I think it'll be valuable for you to do that.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, I think everybody knows I'm the world's biggest data quality evangelist. And so I realize it, but look, data quality is suffocating our organizations, and bad data is suffocating our organizations, and it's suffocating companies, small and large, and it is suffocating our government. I mean, this COVID thing really brought it out into the action. We started here with an example of our 500,000 people dead or 600,000 people. It actually matters, kind of thing. And organizations are littered with these kinds of problems. Hopefully not that big, but whoever you are, I don't care what your job title is, you can do something about it. And the great thing about being a provocateur is nobody's ever said, well, they told me not to provoke, right? People have told me I was afraid to do it or whatever it is, but there is an enormous opportunity to get out there and get in front of that and change the way you and your span of influence is dealing with data quality, and it'll make a difference in your organization. But the other reason I want you to do it is so many provocateurs tell me it was the best part of their career. It was the most fun they ever had, the most impact they ever had. And so I don't care who you are. I mean, if you're a knowledge worker, a data scientist, a technologist, right, this is available to you. If you're a business person, this is available to you. If you're a middle manager, there's nothing you can do that will impact your team more. And that scales up. Right.
Yep.
So
I hear you. And in closing, can you share with the audience some of the book you've written a new book, I believe, and you're writing some chapters.
Well, my last book on data quality was titled "Getting in Front on Data: Who Does What." And what it really underscored was when I started working on data quality is how are we going to attack the problems? How are we going to do this? But then it really became clear to me 5 or 6 years ago that it was less about the how and more about the who. And these roles and responsibilities we've spent the last hour in getting them in place. And so I wrote that book to really address those needs and try to do it in a way that's accessible for anybody, right? We don't do this anymore, but literally you could buy this book and then tear out a chapter and send it to your boss and say, boss, we need to do this, right? So whatever the electronic version of tearing a chapter out is now.
Got it. And I'm assuming that's available on Amazon.
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay.
All
right. On that note, I think we're right on the top of the hour. Tom, thank you very much for enlightening us with your thoughts and your expertise on data quality. Look forward to next week's session on how to implement data quality. And I want to thank the audience for joining us. And please sign up for the session next week. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yep. Thank you, Jay. Enjoy the day.
Thank you.